and I want to get her focused so that she becomes more of a social animal, more the person that she really is inside. This is about being able to move forward, because as you said, you felt a little bit lost or felt a little bit stuck.
Yeah, I felt like something just stopped inside of me, especially when my sister died.
Yeah.
That sort of was like a cherry on the top, you know, it was like, what's going on here, you know? So that was what triggered this all off. I knew I wasn't feeling good for a while about a lot of other issues that I'd carried with me from the past. And then when my sister died, I actually had this weird experience, and I thought, now something's definitely not right. Just something shifted inside of me.
Well, so basically you've been hit on all sides, all right? The good news is that you are going to get through this. You are going to get not just through it, you're going to get beyond it as well, to a much better place. That's what we're after here. There are solutions for this, and we're going to get them. You're going to get them, and it is going to happen for you. That's a guarantee.
My session with Brian was wonderful. I found it very uplifting, very relaxing, very real. Actually, quite surprised at the way that I reconnected to something that I thought I'd lost. It's going to be a far better journey than I actually anticipated. I needed that 10 months or that 2 years to go through some sort of a process to get where I am now. And I'm starting to reconnect to that. I'm starting to appreciate it. I'm starting to live it again. Thank God.
Wonderful. Now, Tammy, you seem to have turned a corner there, really, and obviously we'll be chatting to you about that and,
Yes.
and all the emotions you went through and coming out the other side in a few minutes. But first of all, we'll just turn to Brian. And Brian, we all deal with grief in a very different way, don't we?
Yeah, grief is very personal. It's as simple as that. Like, there's no sort of one set way of dealing with grief. Some people will hide in their work. Some people will literally withdraw from the world. There's just different ways of dealing with it. But whatever way you're dealing with it, as long as you get through it, is the main thing. Most people get through grief in around between 6 months to 2 years. Some people get stuck in it for 20 years. But the reality is, if it's not happened within about 2 years, it's a good idea to start looking for help.
So I guess the time issue is very, very true, and timing, I suppose, and time does heal. But for you, your sister got sick. You literally had no time to even contemplate what was going to happen to her. She got cancer in May and very, very sadly passed away by August.
Yes,
You
that's
had
right.
no time to deal with the emotions of what you were going through, A and B, what was ahead of you.
No, exactly. I was planning a trip on a plane, packing my bags and just trying to prepare myself for what I was going to see, because I was forewarned that I was going to get a shock. So, of course, when I arrived there and I saw my sister, the first thing she said to me was, "Do I look terrible?" And I didn't know what to say to her, but I just said, "No, you look all right." But my eyes and my face must have said it all. So she says, "I have lost a lot of weight, you know." I said, "Yes, I know," because she was very, very tiny.
Yeah, it must have just
And
been a
sick.
dreadful shock,
Yes.
I suppose, more than anything.
Yes, it was terrible.
Getting over the shock, I guess, is one thing,
Yeah.
without dealing with any other emotions that will actually come after that. There are different stages, as we said, and there are different, shall I say, steps
Yeah.
to grief.
Yeah, and we all go,
bereavement.
like, they talk about different stages. We can all happen upon any of the stages at any point in time. You know, the first thing typically is we get shock, you know.
As
and
we
basically-
discussed there with Tammy, total shock and maybe a little bit of denial when you don't want to see the reality of what's in front of you.
Absolutely, yeah. And then it's not unusual then to feel pain or to feel guilt that's connected with that as well. So basically, which is a natural, and I think a lot of people would say, well, did I do enough, or should I have done more, or should I have done something differently? Obviously, after that gives rise to either frustration or anger, and sometimes we even try to bargain. Like, if you know, we try to say, well, if I can just get through this, I'll be okay.
What is exactly, what do you mean by bargaining?
On two sides of that, like when a person's experienced the death of a loved one, they will tend to bargain, just get me through this, just get me through this day, you know, and they talk to their God or whatever, and they say, if I can just get through this, well then, you know, I'll be okay, I'll do what it is, that whatever it takes to make my life better or whatever, I'll be a better person, because that's connected to the
I'll do
guilt.
anything for this not to happen, basically.
I'll do anything for this not to happen, yeah.
When you go through that stage, what is the next stage then?
Well, basically, at that stage, what you know, you're going to go in, the natural progression there is that you feel depressed, or feel sad, or feel lonely, and people respond to that in very different ways. Okay, some people actually literally withdraw from the world, and other people will actually hide themselves in by doing things or becoming very, very active, but not actually connecting with it. It's important at that point you do actually connect with it, what has actually happened.
You're saying there's an upward turn then after that?
Yeah, emotions take, you know, there is a threshold in emotions, and when you experience an emotion, what actually happens is it reaches a point where it reaches its peak. After it's reached its peak, then you get this clearing, so you actually begin to feel a little bit lighter about it.
So you
deal
kind
with
of
the
work
grief.
through it and go on from there?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah, you can begin to deal with it better.
Okay, so looking at Tammy, what kind of emotions do you see that Tammy was going through and problems?
Okay, well basically currently, at the moment she's at a stage where she's actually come to terms with the grief and beginning to reconnect with herself. One of the things that happened to Tammy, which happens to lots of people in grief, or even people that have addictions, people that have alcoholism, and like that, what happens is when they get a stun or a stressor to the system, they separate, they disassociate. What actually happened with Tammy is she disassociated from herself. She didn't feel like she was herself. She's now reconnected. That means basically she's now in a position to be able to move forward.
And how can she do that?
Well, basically now that she feels that she's in control, and she'll tell you that she feels literally back to being herself again, what we're going to do from there is we're going to build it so she gets focus. We're going to literally work with her personality so we can get her to where she needs to go, and basically direct her so that she can begin to produce things in her life that actually makes her feel better, feel good.
Brian was talking to you about working through guilt. Were you surprised and shocked when he said that, or was that something you felt that had to be done?
I felt that it had to be done. I mean, I knew that I felt guilty, and I knew that I needed help with it. Because
Guilty, why? Because you weren't there, or?
Guilty for a lot of reasons. For her dying and leaving her children behind and her grandchildren. Guilty because I wasn't there. I had all kinds of emotions going through, so I just carried a lot of guilt. I don't know why, because it was unnecessary, but I just felt the
work
guilt.
Through that.
Yeah.
How do you feel overall now about the session?
I feel brilliant. I can't tell you that from being here on the show on the 9th and then from meeting Brian, how quickly something happened to me again in my life. 70% or even more so, I feel that I'm reconnecting with myself again. I'm starting to build up and have a different way of looking at things, you know.
It's almost like a rebirth.
Yes, it is.
Great.
It is in a
and
manner
it's
of
great.
speaking, actually.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's almost like a rebirth coming out of something. Okay,
Brilliant.
thank you. That's brilliant. Of course, Tammy will continue to meet with Brian on her emotional makeover journey. So will Elaine and Louise, who we already met last week. And here's a little quick glimpse now of how they're feeling at the moment.
After the show, I was happy that everything was out in the open and people knew how I felt. But I was very nervous about people, what they were going to say, what they were going to do, what they were going to think. It was nice knowing that people are in the same position. I had a lot of family members asking me up for coffee just for a chat, so that was nice. A lot of people kind of annoyed that I didn't tell them anything, but I didn't know what to say. Where do I start? I did get a lot of support just from friends and family, so they said they're going to help me through this, so I'm looking forward to it.
It's a few days on since my meeting with Brian and everyone at the afternoon show, and I might sound a bit strange, but I feel a change in me already. Meeting with Brian was a very positive experience. He has a very positive energy, and it really, coming away from that, made me feel, well, now I've taken the first step, and he has promised that I'll be a very different person at the end of it, so I'm really looking forward to that.
And we're going to be catching up with Louise next week and talking to her in more detail. But for now, thank you very much to Tammy. And I just want to say that earlier on, you and I were chatting a little bit, and you said that you were actually in touch with the two girls.
I am, yes. We've been...
And that's been helping you as well.
Absolutely, all three of us. We've been chatting about the experience, the excitement, and the reality of what's happening to us, and it's really brought us closer together, which is great.
Great. I'm so glad you're getting on so well. And Brian, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And of course, we'll see you next week again.
Sure.
Thanks
Thank
a
you.
lot.
Thank
now,
you.
Shayna.
Excellent. It's very interesting now. We'll be dying to see how you get on. And you look gorgeous, Tammy. Thank you. Love the top. You look very beautiful. Okay, let's get into the kitchen now. We're talking about salt. We've made the salt right down to the cooking oil. Everything we have this week is supporting Irish by using only Irish ingredients. That's all Irish there in the